Now, the widow and daughter of the late Rick husband, the commander of the Columbia mission, joined me in studio earlier ahead of tomorrow's memorial. These are their reflections.
It's extremely significant to be here. We all feel like family. So when families come together, whether it's to enjoy and eat together or grieve together, it's really wonderful to be together. So I think most of all, for all of us, there's just a huge comfort in that. I think the highlight for all of us is to be able not only to be back in Israel, but to be with Rona and Ilan's kids, to be with Tal and Yiftach and Noah. That's been the most significant piece of being here.
Certainly, and I understand that when you spoke with Rona, of course, in years gone by, when you've remembered this incident, she said something that meant a lot to you, that connected you all together.
Well, even before the accident, we really felt a bond just as moms, and there's just not a lot of people whose husbands are doing what our husbands were doing. So we felt very connected to each other and just developed such a close friendship. But after the accident, Rona said to me, I think even the day of the accident, we're family now. So it was very significant.
And what about you, Laura? What does it mean to you? Of course, this is your 5th time here in Israel, but being here for such an occasion.
I think it's that we're still a little bit in shock from just everything that's happened, but being here is healing for us, to be with, like my mom said, Tal, Yiftach, and Noah, and just be with the other Columbia families. There's therapy through that, being together, encouraging each other, even just acknowledging how we're feeling. I think it's really healing just to have solidarity as a group, to be together and lean on each other right now.
And you're very close, I understand, with Tal, who we heard his beautiful music in that interview. Tell us about that special bond you have.
Yeah, we've both grown up with this passion for music and expressing ourselves through that artistic approach, and it's really been a healing component for both of us in losing our dads. He's done so much with his music. It's inspiring to me, and just amazing to see the beauty come out of ashes, the beautiful things that come from tragedy. And art is a great way to find the beauty in the midst of the hard things.
It's a beautiful way to put it. Thank you. Evelyn, of course, I have to ask you to take us back to that fateful day. You were both on the runway, minutes away from expecting your loved ones to arrive here on Earth. What are your memories of that day?
They're very clear. We were extremely excited to see them. They'd been in space for 16 days, and prior to that had been in quarantine, and before that had trained for months. So we were all very excited to reunite and hear about their mission that was so successful. And because Rick was the commander, even at the landing site, I could hear his voice over the intercom and was listening to him talking with Mission Control. And there's a period when the shuttle is coming back through the atmosphere that there is no communication, which is normal. And so when that occurred, I wasn't alarmed or worried that anything was wrong. However, as minutes passed and the communications did not resume, I remember turning to one of my astronaut friends that was standing with me. We were in a private section. Rona and her children and me and my children were all in a private section together, all the crew families. And I remember saying, which direction is the shuttle going to land, and when are we going to hear the sonic boom? And all of a sudden, I realized that not only was my astronaut friend on his phone, but all of the NASA people in the section next to us were coming down out of the bleachers on their cell phones. And he just indicated, hang on a minute. And I remember looking at the countdown clock. There was a huge countdown clock that we could see when they were going to land, and it went to 0. And there's no shuttle. And prior to the shuttle landing, there's a significant sonic boom. So it's an announcement almost that we're close by and we're headed in. And there was no sonic boom. It was just silent. And I watched the clock start counting up positive numbers. And I remember Rona actually saying, well, they must be late. And I remember my astronaut friend saying they're not late. So Laura and Matthew, my son, stood next to me and held on to me, and they said, I remember Laura asking me, is Daddy okay? And I said, I don't think he is, but we're going to have to go find out what's going on. And so they rushed all of us out from the viewing area back to crew quarters, where our family members, our crew members, had slept the night before their mission. So all of their stuff was still there. So they each had a bedroom with their name on the door, and so we each went into, we were walking around in shock. I mean, initially we couldn't even really cry. We just were in shock. And we went to their bedrooms. Eventually they pulled us into a conference room to officially notify us that the crew had perished. It was excruciating, and I just remember I have a very strong faith in Jesus, and Rick did as well, and we're both Christians, and so is Laura, and I just remember asking the Lord, how am I going to get through this? I don't know how I'm going to get through this, and we did. I mean, the Lord was very faithful. I mean, I felt very protected, even though it was catastrophic. But all of us just clung to each other, and arrangements were made to fly us back to Houston. Rona was on the same plane with her children with us, and we just knew that we had to just take it one step at a time. It's just some place you never expect to be, so it's almost surreal.
Right. And I understand that, of course, all NASA astronauts are asked to write down what their wishes are should anything tragically go wrong. And that, in fact, his faith was one of those things that he asked you to carry forward for him.
It was. So it's not a normal group of people. So when Rick was on his first mission, I met him in quarantine. They're in quarantine a week prior to their flight. And we all were witnesses on their last will and testaments to sign them. And I'm thinking, what? This is not a normal job. But they laughed about it. I mean, it's a calculated risk, and they can't be fearful. Just like Ilan was a military pilot, and so was Rick. I mean, that's not something that you dwell on, or you couldn't do the job.
Right.
So humor is a great offshoot for that. So when Rick filled out that form, his one priority was tell them about Jesus. He's real to me.
What's it like for you, Laura, I suppose, being at the space conference this week, seeing all, I suppose, the work of the space industry, the continued efforts, and then seeing your father remembered and honoured in the way that he was?
I think in some ways it's overwhelming to see, to remember. It's painful, but it's also hopeful and encouraging. First going to the Ramon Foundation, seeing the Space Lab finals, seeing all the children so excited with their STEM projects, and seeing the hope and the future in their eyes, and what Rona has done with this country to inspire the next generation in STEM. It reminds me of how my dad felt, and I know my dad wanted to be an astronaut at the age of 4. So this is giving children in Israel that same excitement, and hopefully that same opportunity to picture and see their dreams come true. And so it's very hopeful, like I said, very painful, but hopeful, and seeing just the culmination of what Rona has been working towards and inspired. It really is a beautiful, the fruit of her hard work and labor, and just the outpouring of her love in the midst of her grief. And so that gives us hope and encourages us to keep persevering.
Sure. And talk us through, from what you understand, the mentality of an astronaut. What drives them, and what drove your father, from what you understand?
My dad it was from a place of pure joy and excitement, and he asked NASA in junior high what it would take for him to be an astronaut. And once he received the information from NASA, he kept that in his wallet his entire rest of his school career into college. And even coming home, once he was an astronaut and he was living his dream, he inspired that in my brother and I, just this love of space, this love of what he did. He was super humble, but he kept just the excitement always at the forefront of what he did, and that passion. He was living what his passion was.
So just finally, what can you tell us about what he was hoping to achieve, and what he was sharing with you the moments before he took off on that mission that he'd always dreamt and spent his life preparing for?
Well, when Rick first learned that he was assigned to be the commander of this crew, he shared with me how phenomenally excited he was, because each person in that crew was just a very unique, amazing person. So our friendship with Ilan was so special because of that. And Rick told me in the very beginning, he goes, I really think we're going to get to go to Israel when this is over after the mission. And so it was a dream for both of us to be able to come to Israel. And so he was so excited about that. And even during the mission, that's what we talked about, was being able to travel here. So when we came with Rona a year later, it was very bittersweet, but I was so thankful that we were still able to do that.
Unbelievable, and it's amazing that that brought you here. And I do understand you've been here several times. Both of you have come to do volunteer work and really feel connected to Israel. And our thoughts are, of course, with you ahead of tomorrow's memorial ceremony. And I really appreciate you coming and sharing those memories and that perspective with us.